So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening for Meet the Funders. It's a joint effort between the Grantmakers Council of Rhode Island and the Alliance for Nonprofit Impact. I am Robin Shion, she, her, hers, the Programs and Communication Manager of the Alliance for Nonprofit Impact. And before I turn it over to the funders themselves, I just want to do a quick plug for the Alliance and go over some housekeeping things. I'm also going to keep letting people into the room. So the Alliance is Rhode Island's nonprofit resource center supporting all 501c3s through tools and resources, opportunities for learning and connection, and advocacy. We are also open to organizations that are in the process of obtaining their 501c3s too. So for our upcoming webinars and events, this Friday, the 16th, we'll be hosting a session with Bristol County Savings Bank about nonprofit banking services and lending. If you're a new member and want to hear about how you can utilize your membership, or if you aren't a member yet and want to learn more, join us on Monday the 19th at 12 p.m. for Membership Mondays. Then on Wednesday the 21st, we have our policy briefing at 12, where you can hear about the latest state and federal policy updates and connect with your colleagues on strategies and support. And some more folks into the room. On the 22nd, we'll be having a session with Partridge, Snow and Hahn, LLP, on employment law implications of changing federal laws. And to finish up the month, we have our Impala training session on the 28th at 11 a.m., where you'll learn how to use our grants research database. It's free for members. And lastly, applications for our Deputy Director Leadership Circle are open, and that's a year-long in-person cohort for deputy directors at organizations with a budget size of under $5 million. So now I'll take some time to highlight some of our newest member benefits. Give for Good RI is our new year-round giving platform, and it runs on the same technology as 401 Gives. It's free for Alliance members to register for, and Alliance membership is also still free, so you should register for both today if you haven't already. We also just added a new board support platform, so you can host your meetings, store minutes, hold votes, and connect with your board members all in one place. Along with our 40% discount to Clark University's MPA of Senior Leadership in their School of Professional Studies, 15% off Roger Williams University School of Professional Studies. We also now have a 20% discount to Johnson & Wales University Master of Public Health. And in fun member benefits, all members of the Alliance have access to free weekly yoga on Wednesday nights at Shri Yoga Studio in Pawtucket, and they're also an Alliance member. So come out tomorrow for a restful restorative session if that's your thing. In terms of advocacy, we have hours available for advocacy consulting. So if you have questions about the legislative session, want to workshop your legislative agenda, or have general questions, Alliance members can schedule that one-on-one time with our consultant. We've also been working with the Lawyers Committee for Rhode Island on the Nonprofit Legal Protection Program, which provides free legal resources for nonprofits in the state to protect their federal funding and their missions. If you have immediate legal needs, especially around final notices about the termination of your funding, you can reach out directly to them at lawyerscommitteeri@gmail.com. And if you have general technical assistance needs for your organization, the Alliance has a survey you can complete to get connected to available resources. And if we don't have them, we will work towards sourcing them. So we encourage you to fill that out for whatever general operating needs you have. I will say we have grant writing and fundraising consultants on standby because that's a huge need, but any input you can give us on your pain points would be great for us to know. Lastly, if you're not signed up for our sector newsletter, you should do that to stay in touch with all our updates and ongoings. Alliance members are automatically included in that, and they also get their own weekly member newsletter, although the schedule on that has been pushed back to get out important updates happening at the state and federal level. Lastly, housekeeping things. To turn on live captions or translations, you can click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen and choose between the 30+ languages Zoom offers. We want to know if there are any other offerings that would make both our virtual and in-person programs more accessible for you, so please reach out to me anytime with those suggestions. This webinar will be recorded, and there'll be a follow-up email with all the necessary resources mentioned throughout the night. So if you need anything from tonight or have any questions, you'll be able to contact us through that way. So on to the main event. Our 14 or so funders will be presenting in twos, and we'll have a total of 15 minutes for their presentation and questions afterwards. You can put your questions in the chat and I'll monitor them, or in the case we run out of time, I'll make sure to compile them and follow up. But with that, I think we're just waiting for the main room to finish up for instructions to be given out. And so if there are any questions about the Alliance, upcoming events, or the event tonight, feel free to unmute yourselves or throw it in the chat. And then we
here representing Textron. I'm Karen Warfield from Textron.
And I'm Jasmine Arnold from Blue Cross Blue Shields.
And we have a little agenda that we need to go by. So we're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about what we do for funding, and go from there. I don't know if you were all emailed a Meet the Funders packet, but if you were not, get in touch with Nancy Wolanski of the Nonprofit Alliance for Impact. Not my forte here. And she can get you all the contact information you need. We can also give it to you online if you have any questions. So I guess you want me to go first? You want to go
Yes,
first?
take it away.
You can go first.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we both are two totally different kind of funders. So Text Run is located in downtown Providence. If you don't know who we are a multi-industry company. We're headquartered in Providence, make nothing here, but we own Cessna aircraft and Bell helicopter and Easy Go golf cars and other multi-industries. Here in Rhode Island, we give only to Rhode Island organizations. And our focus is for workforce development programming. And for new grants, we're looking for organizations or programs that teach hard skills to high school level and older. That may also help with job placement or internships and that type of thing for the unemployed and underemployed. I have to look at my list because otherwise I'll miss something. We don't do general operating. We definitely do programmatic. And as I said, we have a very narrow focus for new grants. We do some sponsorships, but our sponsorship budget for events is so small, we are not taking on any new sponsorships. Other than those we already have partnerships with. So the only open thing we would have is grants at this time. We have 2 cycles. One is spring and one is fall. Our spring cycle deadline is March 1st. Our fall deadline is September 1st. We open our grant portal about 6 weeks prior. So the next one will open mid-July for our September 1 grant cycle deadline. We use cyber grants. Our link is online. So you can look for that. Our awards are given for spring by June 30 and for fall by December 30. Anything different that we do? The other thing I will tell you is I have a pretty open door policy. So if you call me or send me an email, I am happy to have a 5, 10, 20, 30-minute discussion with you if you think you have a good program that might fit in our focus. I would rather spend your time and my time, especially your time because it's so valuable, and spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes instead of you filling out a grant and then getting denied and not realizing we didn't have a good conversation, or you're asking for $100,000 and we would never even look at something like that. So I think I covered everything.
Great. Yeah, no, good job. Thanks for going first. And I feel like gave me a good first step because there are some things that I think we do so similarly and some things that we do really differently. So I'll try to speak to highlight those a little bit. But again, Jasmine from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Rhode Island. We are right here in downtown Providence. Your colleagues are in the building with us. And we also fund specifically in Rhode Island. We were founded by the state legislature to serve a social mission. And so even though the Blue Cross logo is something that you may see in other markets, we are hyper local, hyper focused on Rhode Island and programs that serve Rhode Islanders. We are primarily funding in the social determinants of health space and healthcare access. In the last few years, we have partnered with the the Brown University School of Public Health on the RI Life Index, which is a survey of all Rhode Islanders and about their ability to be well. We really use that data to guide our philanthropy, and that data is available online, rilifeindex.org. But I'll tell you what we've learned in the past 5 or 6 years, and that is that social determinants of health are just critical. And in particular, the housing score consistently has been quite low, and so that has guided our connection and our drive to invest in safe and affordable housing. Beyond that, though, I will just share, I think we take a broad approach to what health means. I think years ago, there was sort of an understanding that, we might only fund like a youth doing sit-ups or something like that. And we really do know, as all of you do, that there's so much more about one's ability to be well. And so we are open to thinking about behavioral health, healthcare access, and all of the social determinants. The other thing that sort of guides our philanthropy are, the many ways that we can engage. And so we have program, application templates around event sponsorship programs. We do a big day of service every fall. So we have a call for applications every April to think through where our colleagues can volunteer. We also have a robust volunteer program all year long. And so I think that there are a lot of entry points, and oftentimes we've, connected with a new organization through one of those opportunities and sort of had the relationship grow from there. So like Karen, I would say that we are also very open to those conversations. If you have a whole slew of programs and want to have a conversation about what the best fit would be versus completing a long application, which you can do. The link is on our website. It's publicly available. But truly, there are humans on the other side, and happy to start having those conversations about what might be a good fit now, or what might be a good fit for the next budget year. We are rolling in our applications, but our budget is calendar year. So as we get later in the year, the sort of unplanned dollars start to dwindle. So, if you have an idea or something time specific, happy to have those conversations sooner rather than later. For events, we don't tend to necessarily be the largest funder. We have a little bit more flexibility in our program budget, but again, happy to have a conversation with you about where that might match up with your work. And then just sort of this last question about what we're doing different, given sort of the state of the world. It's a good question. It's an evolving one. We are really trying to work with our current grantees. We're trying to be very flexible around moving targets, changing. We're also always interested in hearing from the nonprofit sector, other partners. So keeping really close conversation with Nancy at the Alliance, United Way, other folks who are pivoting to support the sector at this time. So, we've done things like extending grant timelines, things like that, readjusting grant goals. But I think it'll just sort of be an evolving conversation. Get it all.
So I just want to give props to, is it Sina? Because I'm so happy to actually see a face. I am a face-to-face person, so doing Zoom meetings is not fun for me. And so I appreciate you actually putting your camera on. And all the rest of you, I just think you're chicken for us to see you. That's all.
If you
here they come.
If you all do it, it might crash the Wi-Fi. So no pressure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, look at them now.
No, I love it. Hello.
And just one more thing about Textron. If you go on to our website and you go to the charitable giving page, it will say we fund a lot of different programming, but that represents everything we do around the country, and our businesses make their own decisions. So you may see it says healthy families, vibrant communities, but that could be somewhere in Texas or whatever. So just so I don't want you to be confused when you see it, but like I said, call me. If you don't have my phone number, I'll give it to you if you want my phone number. It's 401-457-3573. And my email address is kwarfield, KWARFIELD @textron.com. And if you want to have a phone conversation or Teams or a Zoom meeting, I'm happy to have that with you. I really value your time and your energy, and I don't want you wasting your time filling out applications that just may not even be considered because of our narrow focus. So thanks for seeing all your faces. Anybody?
Okay, there we go. Can everyone hear me? Someone give me a thumbs up. Yay. Okay. Thank you, Annabelle. So hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you virtually. My name is Caitlin Sullivan. I use she, her, and I serve as senior community investor with the Point 32 Health Foundation. And we're a regional corporate foundation that is connected to the parent organization, Point 32 Health. So in the state of Rhode Island, you may know Tufts Health Plan or Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. We're the philanthropic entity connected to that health insurer. And so we serve 5 New England states, including statewide in Rhode Island. The foundation, sort of over the past few years, coming out of COVID and due to the fact that we were going through our own combination of itself, has sort of been on a journey of becoming, if you will. And so did deep community listening over the past few years, and really have been trying to build off what we know has been true since COVID. And say we want to be a foundation that we know doesn't forget sort of the ingenuity and the way that both foundations and nonprofits stepped up to meet community need, but also were nimble and responsive and really trusting kind of the organizations to lead in the way that they knew made sense. So we beginning in earnest this year in 2025, are operationalizing our focus on equity and aging, which really has 2 core approaches to how we do that work. And really at its core means, making communities more equitable and healthy for everyone. So within that focus, we're also operationalizing a trust-based approach to grant making. And so we do fund up to 5 years now, 5-year investments we just began making, and multi-year general operating support to grantees. So within our equity and aging focus, the first really core approach to how we advance that mission is by supporting organizations that are engaging in community organizing, policy and advocacy, and systems change efforts to improve conditions impacting older adults. And so at that within that intersection, really looking to support community-based interventions that are improving things like housing, supports, transportation, access to healthy food, community improved approaches to mental health, as well as caregiving. And so we really look for older adults with diverse lived experience to be really informing and at the center of those solutions. The second approach to advancing equity and aging is by a deep commitment, continued commitment to social and racial justice. And so our board this past December approved a $15 million or 5-year commitment to support this work. And so that's across 5 states. And so within that, we have made 5-year investments to movement building organizations. So there's 2 of us right now leading our grant making across New England, and we understand that, like, I live in Massachusetts. There's decision makers that should be more proximate to how resources are then dispersed across the region that have more deep lived experience and expertise into that. So we made oftentimes the grants to those were actually made to intermediary organizations that are then re-granting those funds to smaller, more grassroots organizations. And so the Alliance has received a 5-year investment from us, understanding they can do more deep capacity building work, as well as like the Rhode Island Solidarity Fund, which is really looking to support more movement building organizations through resource organizing projects. That's sort of some of the ways that we think about our work. Our average grant size is about 100,000 and our average duration is 2 years. I got that question in the last space, but we do have an open inquiry form on our website that is rolling, and it is open, and we try to respond within 30 days. And after you complete that inquiry form, if we see alignment, from there, the next step is to have a conversation with the team, because for us, it's really about understanding your work, being able to ask questions, but there is sort of that inquiry form initially, just so we can better understand fit and alignment. And it's open on our website. So, yeah. All right. We'll have time at the end for questions.
Hey everyone, good evening again. So my name is Roshni Darnell. I'm joined here with my colleague, Marlene Guy, and we're both with the United Way of Rhode Island. Marlene, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marlene Guy. I am the Program Officer for Child Development and Education at the United Way of Rhode Island.
And I help oversee our overall grant making at United Way. I see a few familiar names on the screen there, which I appreciate. I know we've been in conversation and communication with many of you over the past month, kind of discussing some of the responsive grant making that we've been doing. So since 2020, our focus has really been on trying to get a lot of general operating dollars in the hands of our partners because we feel that is one of the ways we've been able to really center equity in our work and also be more responsive to the needs of our partners and learn the lessons of the pandemic. The current crisis right now, excuse me. uh, has really also accelerated some of our responsive grant making. We currently have an opportunity open called United is the Way, which is focused on trying to address some of the funding loss that a lot of our partners are currently experiencing, either federal funding loss or delays in contracts or even, some of the contract delays that are coming through the state. So essentially, it's a double, triple whammy at some point from all directions for our partners on the ground, including the rise in needs of, folks that are coming to your agencies every day. So that opportunity is currently available and, open for folks to apply. We are meeting with folks on the regular. So if there is questions or you have something specific that you'd like to discuss with us, you're welcome to reach out to us directly as well. And I'll have Marlene share a little bit her work.
Absolutely. So I predominantly focus on the tiny humans, but that is not the sole focus of the work. It's education as a whole. Our pillars in general fall under the larger umbrella of family stability. So we talk about things from anything from emergent needs that families are experiencing, supporting housing, education, access to after school care and childcare, really thinking about the income disparities and the emergent needs that are happening. That has pivoted, and I think that we started at the beginning. I think all of us as funders have had to pivot since the pandemic, and we continue to do so. It was kind of warming us up to the process of being able to be more responsive and connect better with our community partners, really thinking about streamlining the processes, ensuring that it is an opportunity for programs to continue to do the work that they know the community needs best, and leaning into that trust-based piece. And so there's really been a focus on that so that while we still do some programmatic grants, specifically, I know we do the summer learning initiative as well as like our VITA programs, but we are really switching over to a general operating dollar, really thinking about how to best support our programs. And this last, we are going into the third year of our community impact fund. And this has been really interesting to see the pivot and the change from the programs, what they originally anticipated to be able to provide and support the community 3 years ago. And even since January, what we've all had to maneuver around, and we're all learning alongside our partners. And we only know what we know, and we lean into our networks and our community partners to be able to help keep us in a situation that allows us to make the best decisions on our end to prepare moving forward. So as Roshni said in the beginning, it is really imperative if you have questions about current opportunities, United is the Way. We can only create and prepare things that we know about. So there's a true partnership that we're creating with the nonprofit sector. Whether you are a current funded partner or not, we still lean into your expertise and value all of the work that you guys are doing. And we can only advocate for what we know. So we want to make sure we have great working relationships with everybody.
Yeah.
Any questions? Let's look in the chat. And you guys can come off mute if it's easier.
Yeah.
Hey, Tina. Hello.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions or any things that would be helpful to expand upon?
I have a quick question about the United is the Way grant. So I am working with a few different organizations that are based in Rhode Island, but whose impact is global. So I was wondering if those organizations would be eligible for this grant because they do have their 501(c)(3) based in Rhode Island, but the work they're doing is in other countries.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think.
I think we've been really focused in the local community here, so that is really where a lot of our, funding has gone towards. And not knowing the details right this minute, I wouldn't specifically be able to answer. But,
Fair.
happy to connect separately if that's something you want to talk through. But historically, we've not funded for work outside of, the country.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. I'll probably contact you anyway just to connect and give details, but thank you for that.
Okay, and Robin, you'll share our contact information. Yeah.
Great.
So wonderful. I think there's a question here about point 32. Okay. United Way for education programming piece. What type of programming have you supported already? I'll let Marlene take that. Yeah, go ahead.
I can answer that really quickly. The majority of our educational work supports our after school, out of school time, or summer programming. So we think about third space, less in the formal education realm, but really thinking about the learning spaces that happen anytime outside of the formal education setting. But that is not limited. We also have programs that have offered resources for like homeschool parents or that we think about outside of the box. We let the experts be the experts in school.
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
we're getting called to switch out, but it was wonderful chatting with all of you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Please be in touch with us and Robin will drop our contact in the chat.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody.
Hey there,
I'm Greg Perry with the Pepito Opportunity Connection.
I'm Jen White with the Harbor One Foundation and Harbor One Bank.
We have so many people on this one. I think we'll skip the introductions across the board, but it's great that everyone's here. We'll take a couple of minutes to give you our elevator pitch, so to speak, and then really want to open it up to questions that you all might have. And we find that's been the best way to approach all of this.
Sure, I can kick things off. So Harbor One Bank, we are based in Brockton, Massachusetts, but have a strong presence here in Rhode Island. We've got 9 branches and a loan production office here. The foundation supports organizations that primarily working in 3 distinct areas: access to basic needs, safe and affordable housing, as well as educational opportunity, specifically, youth development, as well as financial education, and also on the other end of the spectrum around post-secondary planning or workforce development. We have 2 funding cycles per year. March, we're in the middle of one now. March closed May 1. Then we have a second cycle, which typically opens in August. And this year we'll be closing most likely in the October timeframe. The big news I'm sharing tonight is that Harbor One Bank is merging with Eastern Bank, which is a New England bank that doesn't presently have a presence in Rhode Island, but is looking forward to investing in the local communities, which is really exciting to us because it just doubles, triples potentially what we're doing today. And I think that's yeah. I'll pass the baton. We've been doing it the third go around.
This is the third time. We'll get it.
It's getting shorter.
So, as you may know, the Pepito Opportunity Connection works with organizations that are looking to create systemic change for Rhode Island's communities most in need. And we do that in some specific areas, including education, job skills training, entrepreneurship, housing, and healthcare. We have two grant cycles. One is about to start on June 1st. So the 1st through the 16th at 11:59 p.m. Will be our next cycle. We offer two separate grant opportunities. One is the POC $1 Million Innovation Challenge, which again supports specific programming in those areas of education, job skills training, entrepreneurship, healthcare, and housing. And we really look to organizations that might collaborate with each other. So we encourage collaboration on that grant opportunity. The second is as a smaller grant program that organizations can apply for, and that provides operational funding. And those grants generally range between $5,000 and $20,000. So each year we're putting about $6 million on the street, 3 from the June cycle, 3 from the December cycle. And we're really looking again for unique, innovative, and creative programs on the $1 Million Innovation Challenge.
Do you want to open it up and
we'll open it up to questions? Oh, two questions in the chat. Oh, 7 new messages down there. Let's see.
Okay. Hey Doris, how are you? And thank you for all your help with Harbor One and Harbor One employees. Really appreciate you and your work. How will that affect us? I think it's an incredibly positive opportunity. And again, I can't speak. The merger is supposed to close at the end of the year. So obviously we'll know more. I do know from the documentation that has been made public that they've committed $20 million to Harbor One's region, which is terrific. So Rhode Island is part of that. So that's super exciting. The other exciting part is their foundation does some amazing work and goes deep in a couple different areas, 0 to 5, so early childhood, as well as access to housing, which is parallel with us. They also have a great entrepreneurship and a commitment to business run by people of color, which is also amazing. So that marries up really well with our
on maternity leave, fleshing out my business ideas. I'm picking. Agreed. Okay, either it's the Play Cafe.
Thank you for muting there. So anyway, Doris, it's incredibly positive in so many ways because I really respect the foundation team at Eastern Bank, and I've known many of the folks over there for many years. It's kind of a small world. So yeah, excited to introduce them to the market.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So Kimberly's question, do either of your education grants include intellectual and developmental disability community? Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. How would you define unique? Why don't I tell you what we have done for our $1 Million Innovation grants, and you can decide whether you think that's unique or not. We do. So our first $1 Million Innovation grant went to Brown University Health for the creation of the first sickle cell treatment center in New England. So there are about 500 people in Rhode Island that suffer from sickle cell, and their only treatment option is to sit in the cancer ward at Rhode Island Hospital and hope that a seat opens up for them to get their treatment. This would create a dedicated space for them at Rhode Island Hospital where they would be able to be treated by sickle cell docs and nurses and have their own space and not be made to feel like they are which they do in many cases feel like they're just looking for drugs. And so that will create systemic change to change the lives of 500 people. It's doable, and that's the kind of unique and program, game-changing program that POC likes. The second $1 million innovation grant went to the clinic at Amos House to put on the ground medical supports at Amos House for the people and the community that it serves, people that can't access healthcare many times because of their own personal situations. So those are unique programs for which we put $1 million behind those. So that's the kind of unique and interesting program we're talking about.
Game changers, yeah.
Game changers, yeah.
There's a question here about the application at Harbor One. This round has it closed up on May 1. If you check back with us, it should open up should be August 1st this year.
We do meet with an organization beforehand, so feel free to send me an email and we can set up a time to chat.
Same here, but probably less, just spread a little thinner. So patience, maybe we can Zoom.
Yep. We will have our application is being updated right now. It'll go live on our website on June 1st. It's being updated to, and we've talked about this, to ask questions about long-term sustainability of organizations and their funding. So we have an understanding on how you're going to be able to sustain what you do and to get a sense as to where your funding comes from. So that is being updated. Those questions, you can also email me, and as soon as we get that final sign off, I'll send it to you. But again, the application is on our portal. Will be on our portal live on June 1st.
Yeah. I see our board of directors asking that question, right? They're going to look at a budget and see a large government, a chunk, even if it's not for the program that we're looking at to fund. I guess having that explanation and how are these funds used or in your budget narrative is going to be really helpful for funders, just overall, I think.
So do you need to be in collaboration to apply for a smaller grant? No, you don't. You can apply on your own, and that's how most of them do.
Under 500.
Have you funded a small nonprofit with a budget under 500 with $1 million grant? No, and we would not. You need to have a budget that can sustain $1 million grant and have the resources and the operations behind that in order to be able to do that kind of work. Organizations that collaborate together that might have less than $1 million budget, that might be another story.
Fund events, ongoing projects. Thank you so much. So you'll see this across sort of the corporate philanthropy world, especially in the banking world. If I'm answering this correctly, sponsorship events, we're doing less and less of them just because of constricting resources. So doing more programmatic work, or on the bank side of things, where we used to do maybe sponsorship events, we're doing what we call partnership events, where we can engage our employees, where we can engage our customer, like anything that, again, it takes a more sort of integrated approach and going on, multiple levels. So if it's a financial education event per se, we can engage our, local branches to do work, or again, be present and learn more about their own local community.
What else you got for us?
And feel free to come off mute. We can talk.
I don't understand what you mean by accessible pieces to grants.
I was wondering, I'm sorry. My Wi-Fi is bad out here. I was wondering if you'd be open to adding an accessibility piece to the grants that you lend to make sure that the events or the organizations are being accessible to all people, what those using mobility aids. I know I'm working with the Rhode Island Foundation to do that. I didn't know if you guys would be open to that conversation.
Let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
All right, I'd love to get together and have that conversation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Have you funded affordable housing development projects in the past? Yes, we have on a variety of different ways. We don't. The foundation doesn't necessarily do capital, meaning bricks and mortar, but we do something what we like to call leasehold improvements. So if you need to outfit it with computers, or you need furniture, a kitchen, those types of projects. With One Neighborhood Builders, we help fund their Wi-Fi network. So again, being creative and talking it through to sort of get to some increased operational costs or, fixed costs that you might have on a project.
Thank you.
Would be open to event sponsorship. Again, very limited dollars on the event sponsorship side of things.
Can we apply for $1 million innovation grant if we already received a small grant in April? You could. You couldn't apply for a small grant, but you could apply for $1 million innovation grant.
The event sponsorship one, I think I got that one. Okay.
Does that mental health? Yes, absolutely. And we have funded those kinds of programs. We recognize that that is a big piece, and we also know that that is a huge piece in the younger community. You all probably know that we do the Transform Rhode Island Scholarship Program, which we just we have our 10 finalists this year. If you're not familiar with that, it is a program that's open to every high schooler in the state. The question is, if you had $1 million, how would you change Rhode Island's communities most in need? We have 10 scholarships. The winning scholarship gets $25,000, and we put $1 million behind that idea to make it happen. I can tell you that there are probably a third or more of the applications, and we had more than 600 of them this year, dealt with youth and mental health. We know it's a big problem. We do not, Rhode Island nonprofits have to do all of their work in Rhode Island in order to receive POC funding.
Yeah, similar on the Harbor One side.
We got 1 minute left
Yeah, I
if
think
anybody
that's-
has anything. All right. Well,
All
thanks
right.
everybody for your time this afternoon. Hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and we'll do a follow-up. All
Thanks
right.
all.
Take care.
At the Rhode Island Foundation, we are fortunate and grateful to be one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the country, and one of the largest or the largest funder of nonprofits in the state. We most recently went through a strategic planning process, and we've after that we've really specified for our discretionary grant making 5 community priority areas that we're focusing on. They include housing and economic mobility, education and student success, healthy and thriving communities, civic and cultural life, and climate action and sustainability. Go through our prompts. We have 3 core grant programs for our discretionary funding. They include our community priority grants, which range from $10,000 to $150,000. Our capacity building grants, which have a $15,000 cap, and then new this year is a Catalyst grant program, and this is a larger, up to $250,000 a year over 3 years. Our discretionary grant funding can be used for general operating or for programmatic support. We previously had an ongoing cycle for our discretionary grants, but now we have two deadlines for community priorities and catalyst, or in capacity building. We're currently in the middle of our first cycle, and those grants should be made in June. And then for the second cycle, those will open up in August, and I believe those should be made in October, or actually in November or December. And for our Catalyst Grant program as well, we're in the middle of that cycle. We're reviewing all the pre-applications, and we'll invite for full applications and hope to make those grants in October of this year. Suggestions for applicants. I think going through our strategic planning process, we were very intentional on updating our applications and our website with language for what we're looking for. So I would start with our website. We always are accessible. So if you have any questions at all, if you think it's beneficial to have a conversation just to go over what you're thinking, we're happy to meet with you, have a phone call, have a Zoom. Especially for new organizations, it's always beneficial if we're not familiar with each other to, just have a conversation and learn about our programs, and we can learn more about your organization as you're applying. So we look at, alignment with our community priorities. We look at the need you're addressing in the community. Look at your organization. If you're the only ones working on this problem, if there's multiple organizations working on this problem, and then finally, the impact in the community of how you are helping the individuals and families in your community, depending on the work that you're doing. So anything that we're doing different this year, given the current federal environment, we did launch a community partner resiliency fund. We raised $1 million. Unfortunately, that's already been exhausted. We've also taken $2 million from our discretionary grant budget this year to dedicate or to give preference to nonprofits that are disproportionately affected from federal cuts. And then we're also supporting the Nonprofit Lawyer Protection Project and the Lawyer Committee of Rhode Island to provide pro bono legal counsel, other resources to nonprofits whose federal contracts might be abruptly cut. And with that, I will hand it over to Anissa.
Hi, I'm Anise Roof. I'm the grants program manager, and I also focus in arts and health at the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. So we're a state agency. We get 2/3 of our funding comes from state appropriations, and 1/3 comes from the National Endowment for the Arts, which is a federal agency. We provide grants, technical assistance, and support to arts organizations, artists, schools, community centers, social service organizations, and local governments to bring arts to all Rhode Islanders. And our focus is to fund every city and town as much as possible. We have organization grants, which fund projects for organizations, education grants, and arts and health focused grants. Arts is the center of all of the grant making that we do, but we also have these grants in different sectors. These grants are different, up to $6,000 for a community project grant and up to $7,000 for education and arts and health grants. We also have a general operating support for organization grant, Big Yellow School Bus grants, which is a small grant to fund field trips for Rhode Island-based arts and cultural programming. And then for artists, we fund Make Art grants, community engaged project grants, folk arts mentorships and apprenticeships, and a fellowship. And we also have a small grant for artist open studio tours. And those grants range, maximum is up to $5,000 for the individual artist grants, and it works a little different for the folk arts. This past fall, we did a whole restructure to our grants program. We were anticipating and seeing changes within the federal government already across the country. So we were seeing that we needed to make some changes, and also for staff capacity and panel review capacity, and for the applicant themselves. Since the dollar amount that the request at the State Arts Agency is so small, we wanted to relook at the way our application was and to try to simplify it, and look at it against all of our grant programs. So we looked at what is expectations, is looking at logistics, artistic vibrancy and impact, and program specific questions, whether it's arts and health or education or community project. And we also redistributed some of the amounts you could ask for. Our grants budget has not changed in over 15 years. And so the grants that you used to be able to get or request $3,000 was not the same now as it was 15 years ago. So we adjusted the amounts up a little, $5,000 for community project grants and individual artists, because that's where the highest need is, but we know those are still small amounts. So we wanted to try to make it a little easier for applicants to apply. The grants opened in February, they closed in April, so we're in the process of reviewing. Those grants and announcements will be in June. A note is that the staff itself are not the ones that are reviewing or making decisions on the grants. We have an outside panel. So suggestions for applicants is that you can always reach out to the staff. We're here, we're accessible. Just like Ricky said, we want to help you and we can review things with you. We can look at budgets, we can look at narratives, and just support you along the way, because we're not making the funding decisions. And the panel changes every grant cycle. I think, and for our panel that we have every year, they change, but we also train them on implicit bias and around the grant programs itself. So our recommendation is always to read the guidelines, look at what the guidelines are focused on for the grants that you're applying for, look at the review criteria, because when we train the panelists, we're having them just review and rate based on what's in the review criteria, not how well it's written, not about grammar, not about things that are extraneous. And so we're trying to sort of demystify that and make it a little simpler. And we also understand a lot of the organizations we fund might be volunteer led or small. They don't have professional grant writers. So this will be our first cycle that we're going through it. So we'll also be welcoming feedback on how that process is. So I think that's it. And then questions.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're doing questions here.
I'm Mary Johnson. I am with the Van Buren Charitable Foundation in Newport, Rhode Island. We are a family foundation and a geographic funder. So we are focused on primarily Newport County. We do some funding to statewide organizations or organizations just outside of our geography who are having a significant impact. But we don't fund programs that are we tend not to fund programs that are based in Providence, but are saying we're looking for funding so that we can move to Newport, or so we can launch a program in Newport. We like to see that there's already some relationship in the community already. We are funding in education, healthcare, which right now is primarily focused on behavioral health. We have a capital program that is focused on a lot of the built environment in the Newport area. And we have an economic development workforce and entrepreneurship, which also includes a little bit of arts funding. Our typical grants are somewhere in the $10,000 to maybe $60,000 range. And for per program, and staff that is directly related to the program is fine to build into that budget. And then capital grants can be, often hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our application process is, our next deadline is the 22nd of July for decisions in December. And then we're just wrapping up around now that those came in early February, and they'll get decisions next week. In terms of the current situation with the federal funding, we tend not to replace federal funding. Our board is discussing, we have a board meeting next week, and there will be a discussion there about what kind of responsive grant making we might want to do. We did do some responsive grant making during the pandemic, but at this point, I can't really talk about anything because nothing has been agreed on by the board. I think that we're looking primarily with fit within our portfolios and our geography. And I would say we really welcome a phone call in advance. I'm really happy to spend some time talking to people individually to understand what it is you're doing and planning. And so that if you're a good fit, we don't do letters of intent or anything, but in that phone call, we will at least be able to tell you if we don't think that you're a fit at all, either because of geography or lack of portfolio fit. And that is, grant
writing takes a lot of effort and time, and if you're paying an outside consultant money, and we don't really want you to expend the resources when we think that there's a really low possibility of it being a successful grant. So I will turn it over to Meredith.
Hello, everybody. My name is Meredith. I'm from Bank Newport. I'm the Community Relations Manager. I'll talk about 3 different things today. The first one being grants. So we extend grants at Bank Newport through our charitable foundation, which was officially launched in 2023. We're super proud to have a charitable foundation. The philanthropy focus for us is statewide, so we do give funding statewide. We're a statewide bank. The focus in funding is basic human needs, children and families, education, economic security, healthy lives, arts and culture, and the environment. We give grants twice per year. So the deadlines for those grant cycles are February 1 and August 1. Decisions communicated from the February deadline were just at the end of April, and then for the August 1 deadline, it would be end of October. So that's kind of the turnaround time. So you can approach both sponsorships, which I'll talk about in a minute, and grants committee 1 time per calendar year, unless otherwise stated in, say, another funding outline that you may have previously received. When putting forth a proposal, we do not fund pass-throughs, salary stipends, or general operating support. It really is a focus on program or project. And we always like to say to people, picture that you're telling your story for the very first time, whether it be, your organization as a whole, and then also the program or the project that you're seeking funding for. Our foundation board members, they're very keenly aware of who the nonprofits in our state are and the work that they're doing, but it's always good to sort of display that impact that you're making in the work to our board members so that they can get the full picture when they are reviewing proposals. What else about grants? So the current climate, I guess we should say, for the nonprofits in our state, we know that the challenges that have already come your way and may continue. We don't have any changes to our funding guidelines despite those at this time. I don't know if that will change. If it does, we'll make sure that the word gets out, but as of today, no changes. So that's the grants. Oh, the last thing I'll say about grant proposals is we like to see partnerships. We always encourage putting forth partnerships on any applications. That goes for sponsorships and grants, but emphasizing it here on the grants. So I'll switch over to sponsorships now, which we also call contributions at Bank Newport. So we review our contributions 4 times per calendar year. So that's February 1, May 1, August 1, and November 1. That decision turnaround time is a little bit under 30 days, within the 30-day range, ideally under. Sometimes we get a lot and then it takes a few more. But sponsorships, those are really events, fundraisers, things to keep the mission flowing all throughout the year. Sometimes a donation to support your mission in lieu of an event, depending on the timing. But the portal will open for both sponsorships and grants about 60 days ahead of that deadline. So for the February 1 grants and sponsorships, the window was open December 10th. So that gives you kind of a timing on when you can set forth that proposal. Sponsorships, I think that covers it. And then volunteerism, our employees love to get out and volunteer, whether it's directly tied to something we funded or just a standalone event that you need assistance with. You can reach out to me directly. I'm assuming you have my email like everyone physically here does, but if you don't, we can find a way to get that to you. Okay, questions? How can we get feedback on sponsorship channels from Bank Newport? That's a really good question. Why don't you reach out to me and we can set up a time to chat? I would love to be able to look more and see where that question is deriving from. But there was another question in the room too about feedback on proposals, grants and sponsorships. We're always happy to chat if we need to divulge more on that.
Yeah, and we are as well.
What is the next deadline for sponsorships and events? We have a resource and backpack drive every year in August. So the deadline just closed. Yes, I will put my contact in the chat. Let me answer this question before I jump to that. The current review window just closed on May 1st with decisions at the end of May. August, yeah, why don't you send me an email? I'm gonna put my email in the chat and we'll see if we can talk about that timing. Can you apply for both sponsorships and grants at the August 1st deadline? You can approach both committee one time per calendar year. So technically, yes, you could put forth 2 applications on August 1st. Something we see a lot with the grants is usually a phone call or just a conversation via email even about a grant proposal that might be coming our way. We tend to have a pretty good idea who's submitting a grant before the deadline closes. We like to be able to hear what's coming our way, share some very, pointed feedback. We're not going to be swaying applications, but we certainly like to make sure you're met with success, similar to what Mary was saying earlier.
Could you share what typical funding amounts you give?
Yes. So on the sponsorship side, you'll see on our website, it's 5,000 and under. We have had sponsorships that go above the $5,000 threshold, but those are more far in between. And then on the grant side, I would say our sweet spot is between 5 and 20. Certainly we've had higher and we've also had lower, especially in COVID when we were doing really general operating support, lower dollars to more people. But I would say between 5 and 20 on the grant side is the sweet spot.
Thank you.
From our, we do support the staff salaries that are necessary for the program or the project. And we also will allow some, a small amount for your overhead as well. And I think you guys are a little different, so.
Yes, we are a little different when it comes to that. My fearless leader, as I call her, Kathy Charbonneau, I'm going to take that question back. You're not the first person to ask it, Jen. I want to make sure I'm speaking to it accurately. So I am going to take that back and make sure I'm speaking clearly. I can get that answer to all of you somehow, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would say the difference is like if general operating support is really, we just give you money and you can decide however you want to spend it. And with a program or a project grant, you've detailed what it is. And we do recognize that people run programs and that without the staff, you wouldn't be capable of running a program. So that is, I would say that's how we look at it in terms of staff doesn't necessarily make that general operating support. But we tend to peg our funding to specific projects or programs.
I'm inclined to echo that, but I don't want to speak too soon, even though I've spoken.
Other questions? I'll just throw in, it came up in the other group that we don't require an audit. We do if you have one, we would love to see it, but whatever level of financial reporting that you're currently doing is acceptable, whether that's your 990, but if you're doing the postcard, then whatever financials you're giving to your board is really helpful. Thank you. And we really just want to thank you guys for everything that you're doing. You're doing a lot of good work in the community, and I certainly know that I wish that we had a lot of funding to do, fund everybody to the extent to which they could do their best and their best work. And it is, but unfortunately, we're in a time where decisions are tough. And in our case, we have very specific limitations from the family who founded the foundation.
If you have a moment, I have a question about Van Buren. I had previously done some research on your website, and I was just interested to hear more about the mission and just projects that I know you said you're definitely focused on Newport County, but in terms of the mission, can you share a little bit more? Because I just was a little unclear from the website.
Sure. Yeah, it's so this is a family foundation, and the second generation of the family still live in the community part-time. They would really are interested in funding things that promote the health and the prosperity of the community, whether that's economic mobility or it's education. It's within those four buckets, it's actually somewhat broad. But they are just interested in the greater Newport area being a terrific place, and I think that some people think that Newport is so super wealthy, they don't need that kind of support. And actually, Newport has one of the highest levels of poverty in the state. And so there is a lot of work that is being done to make sure that, opportunities are equitable and that the community has the resources and the programs that they need so that the people of the community can be successful. And I will put I don't want to. We've been using a timer and I didn't turn my timer on, so I don't know how we're doing on time, but are there just general questions you guys have that are unrelated to us specifically about grant writing or foundations or anything? Because I think we probably still have a couple of minutes left. Yeah.
I'll just say it's nice to see what people look like when I email them and I send them information, Meredith.
I know. I feel the same way. I've seen faces and names, and I've been like, oh my gosh, that's your face and that's your name together, not just separated by the screen. It is a nice thing. It's nice to meet everybody.
I think Zoom is great, but there's nothing like being in person.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Being Newport, do you ever fund nonprofits who are based in Rhode Island but who have global impact? That's an interesting question. I hate to do this. I'm gonna circle back to you because I don't want to misspeak. Lauren, I'll follow up with you. I need to do some research before I speak on it.
Yes. And so if you're doing a significant, sorry, the question was, would the Van Buren Foundation consider funding for an organization whose headquarters is out of the community but conducts programs or has properties in Newport? Yes. We like to see a significant impact and work being done in the community. But we do fund organizations. I thought I saw somebody from the food bank on here earlier. And we do fund organizations like the food bank that have a statewide, but that are also doing work specifically in Newport County. And so, and I would say, oh, there she is. Hello. And so that would be a good, just reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through your specific situation and, kind of get a sense of whether or not it fits into the portfolios. Community-based youth mentoring for displaced youth, self-involved youth. We have a couple of youth-based organizations that are working with all of the above in terms of youth, and our Healthy Communities portfolio right now is specifically focused on adolescent mental health. And so, yeah, I would say yes, we are funding to all of those folks. For Marisol's question, and Tina, yes, we're about to announce decisions, and I think I had 4 projects this cycle that were specifically about ADA compliance and making spaces accessible to everyone in the community.
And Bang Newport's answer is yes to both past questions. I know we have about 1 minute left if there's any last words.
Yeah, Tina just asked about being more connected. Everything that we fund is up on their website pretty shortly after the grant decisions are announced. And so I would say you could take a look now at the website and see everything that went out in the last year probably, and then there'll be a new round coming up soon. But that's really the best source of information about what we're currently funding. And I would tell anybody that's a good place to start when you're looking to see if you kind of think you'll fit within the guidelines, is you could take a look at what we're currently funding and like I said, but I'm always happy to answer questions.
Okay.
I think this is us.
That's a wrap.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Wow.
Wow.